Chapter 2381. Previously, when he was in the inscription tower, Luo Qingtong's move had broken his battle inscription imprint's power and sent him out of the inscription tower. However, at that time, Luo Qingtong had clearly been destroyed by the light at the entrance of the 7th floor in order to save Song Cheng. He had seen it with his own eyes before he left. How could the other party still be able to use this battle inscription pattern? No, that's not right. This battle inscription pattern was not cast by Luo Qingtong, but by the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower. What was going on? Master Chen, who had reacted, was even more shocked and depressed. Whether it was Luo Qingtong or the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower, he couldn't believe that they were able to use this battle inscription pattern. This was clearly something that shouldn't have happened. Just as Master Chen was in shock, the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower suddenly woke up from the fact that he was able to inscribe battle inscription patterns. With a boom, he rushed towards Master Chen's location. He didn't have time to ask Luo Qingtong how she did it. After all, the youth was on their side and helping them. So how the other party did it wasn't important at all. In fact, as long as Luo Qingtong didn't say anything, he wouldn't take the initiative to ask. And now, he wanted to take Master Chen's life while he was sick. Otherwise, the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower didn't know how long he could use the battle inscription pattern. If there was a limit to what Luo Qingtong could do, then he would miss the opportunity if he hesitated for a moment. By the time Master Chen realized what was going on, all of them would have no choice but to wait for their deaths. The city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower's movements were extremely fast. Almost at the same time that the rain of sword light was completely shattered, the inscription pattern in his hand was already ready to attack. After rushing in front of Master Chen, with a boom, the inscription pattern in his hand attacked Master Chen. The latter was still in shock when he sensed the arrival of the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower. He was shocked and hurriedly dodged. However, the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower wanted to kill him, so how could he let him dodge? Boom boom boom. The power of the inscription pattern around the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower activated repeatedly and directly charged towards Master Chen's left, middle, and bottom. This cut off Master Chen's path of escape. Not only that, the demonic beasts that had shattered the rain of sword light did not disappear. Instead, they roared loudly and charged towards Master Chen. Luo Qingtong's forehead was also covered in cold sweat. The power of the battle inscription pattern was too strong. She had to share it with the city lord, which would consume a lot of her mental energy. He could at most hold on for 100 breaths of time before the power of the battle inscription pattern disappeared completely. At that time, the city lord of Tian inscription tower, Tianfeng Chen, and Master Chen, Lord. Master Chen was masters, Master Chen, Tower, Master, Tower. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She raised the life and death yin-yang sword in her hand and was about to strike. Masters, to Tians, to master to God, to master to raise? To raise to be to Luo. Master, let's attack together, she said to Song Cheng. Chapter 2382. However, Song Cheng had experienced Luo Qingtong sharing her power with him before. After thinking for a bit, he knew that this must have been done by Luo Qingtong. Oh my God, this disciple of mine is simply going to heaven. How can she share this with others? How is Luo Qingtong a human? She is clearly a walking treasure. Song Cheng previously couldn't figure out why Luo Qingtong had to be so secretive when she was with him. She wasn't willing to show her face in tracks, and she even insisted that he arrange a new identity for her. Although Song Cheng had done everything according to Luo Qingtong's instructions, he still felt that Luo Qingtong was too cautious. However, now it seemed that Luo Qingtong wasn't being overly cautious. She should have been more cautious. Oh my God! Song Cheng didn't dare to imagine what kind of sensation Luo Qingtong's ability would cause if others knew about it. She was able to let people who didn't have the talent for inscription, and let people who didn't know how to inscribe battle inscriptions to learn battle inscriptions directly. Moreover, she was able to do it so directly. Her proficiency was extremely high, as if she had been tempered thousands of times. Didn't that mean that as long as one had Luo Qingtong, they would have endless power and might? As long as it was something she knew, she could give it to others. This was really too terrifying. Song Cheng shivered and decided that he would help Luo Qingtong keep this secret even if he had to die. Otherwise, if word got out, Luo Qingtong wouldn't be able to live peacefully for the rest of her life. His disciple was really prepared for a rainy day and was extremely cautious. This is good, this is very good. Song Cheng was still in a state of shock. Almost as soon as Luo Qingtong called him, he immediately reacted and rushed towards Master Chen. Even if Luo Qingtong didn't say anything, he would still help the other party kill this Master Chen. He definitely couldn't let the other party escape and threaten Luo Qingtong's safety. Just as Song Cheng was about to charge at Master Chen, Luo Qingtong released the inscriptions in her hand. Suddenly, the power of a high-level rune master was released and blasted toward Master Chen. At the same time, her eyes were cold as she looked at Master Chen. She said to Tianfeng Inscription City Lord, "Grandmaster, Dao change. Attack him 3 steps to his left, 4 steps to his right, and 3 steps to his left." Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Tianfeng Inscription City Lord immediately changed the direction of the inscription pattern he was aiming at Master Chen. In an instant, Master Chen's face was filled with shock and fear. What Luo Qingtong called out was precisely where he was about to risk his life to escape from the encirclement of the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord. All of his strength rushed towards the 4 directions where Tianfeng Inscription City Lord was attacking him. And the flaw and escape route he left behind was precisely the one that Luo Qingtong had pointed out. He tried his best to retract the power he had unleashed. However, the attack had already been unleashed. How could it be retracted so quickly? Moreover, even if he forcefully retracted the power, it was already too late. Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng's attacks had already followed the direction of the power he had unleashed. As long as he retracted the power, at the same time he would be forcefully counterattacked, he would also be blocked by Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng's attacks. How could it be like this? How could things turn out like this? Master Chen's heart was filled with shock and anger. He didn't know how his thoughts were seen through by Luo Qingtong. Chapter 2383. Bastard! You brat who is still wet behind the ears. Master Chen's face was filled with extreme anger. He looked at the young man with a cold expression and a golden mask on his face. He looked like an immortal and a devil at the same time. He was so angry that he wanted to grind his teeth until they broke. "Xie Qi, I'll remember you." Master Chen roared angrily. At this moment where there was no way to retreat and no way to force him, he could only fiercely summon the life inscription mark in his body, and meet the attack of the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City. Boom! Not daring to clash with Luo Qingtong, this monstrous youth who couldn't be judged by common sense, Master Chen broke through the attack of Tianfeng Inscription City Lord and directly disappeared from the spot. Just you wait. In the sky, only his bloodthirsty roar was left. I will definitely be back. Xie Qi, when the time comes, it will be your time of death. Master Chen's voice disappeared in mid-air. On the ground, only a large amount of blood dripped from him was left. Self-destructing the life inscription mark, even if Master Chen blocked the attack of Tianfeng Inscription City Lord, he was still severely injured. I'm afraid that I've already lost most of my strength. I'm not even as good as a senior inscriptionist. Unfortunately, Master Chen didn't know that as long as he held on for a little longer, the battle inscription mark that Luo Qingtong shared with Tianfeng Inscription City Lord would be up. He didn't need to escape at all. As long as he could hold on for a period of time, he could immediately join forces with Langyu Inscription City Lord and the others to counterattack. The corners of Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. She looked at the place where Master Chen had disappeared and gave Song Cheng some instructions. Then she flew out. Song Cheng and Tianfeng Inscription City Lord didn't even react when Master Chen self-destructed his life inscription mark to escape. They had almost killed a heaven-level spirit print master. They actually did it. The two of them were startled. Not far away, Langyu Inscription City Lord and the others were about to go crazy. They watched as Master Chen self-destructed his life inscription mark and left. They couldn't believe this fact. How is this possible? How is this possible? Everyone was shocked and on the verge of collapse. That was a heaven-level spirit imprint master and battle soul master. Although the opponent's strength had decreased due to the heavy injuries he had suffered earlier, it should not be something that the City Lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City and the others could deal with. The situation in the inscription tower was special, so they accepted it. But what was going on now? Who could tell them? How could things be so fantastical? City Lord Lang Yu and the others held their heads in disbelief. After Song Cheng and Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lords recovered from their shock, they immediately ordered their men to surround and kill them. Today, none of the people who attacked their Heavenly Wind Inscription City would be able to escape. As for Lang Yuwen and the others, they couldn't escape either. Without Master Chen, their group would not be able to withstand a single blow from the City Lord and the others. Not to mention, the other people from Heavenly Wind Inscription City had also gathered and rushed over. While Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord and the others were cleaning up Lang Yuwen and the others in the City Lord's mansion, Luo Qingtong opened her blood-red eyes and chased after Master Chen out of the city. Boom! Chapter 2384. With a bang, Master Chen's path was blocked. His originally translucent figure that was hidden in the air was suddenly revealed. You can actually see through my escape technique. Master Chen looked at the young man in front of him in disbelief. The patterns on the golden mask on Luo Qingtong's face seemed to be mocking him. The corners of Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly as she looked at him mockingly. She flicked the jade fan in her right hand and looked at him casually. What's wrong? Is it that difficult to see through your tracks? A bloody light flashed in Luo Qingtong's eyes. Don't forget that I attacked you just now. Luo Qingtong misled Master Chen, making him mistakenly think that she had done something to him before. In fact, Luo Qingtong was able to see through Master Chen's tracks entirely because of her bloody eyes. But why would she tell him such a thing? Just let the other party guess in fear and trepidation. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Luo Qingtong's eyes glanced at the scene on the side, then she said to Master Chen, Master Chen, do you want me to do it for you, or do you want to do it yourself? Luo Qingtong's words were very obvious. It was whether Master Chen wanted to die or she wanted to kill him. Hearing this, Master Chen's face instantly turned pale. He looked at the masked young man who was standing in front of him, waving the jade fan gently. His heart was filled with indescribable fear and unwillingness. Who the hell are you? Xie Qi. In this endless star field, your name has never appeared in the world. However, with the ability and talent that you have shown at this moment, as well as your outstanding inscription technique talent, you can't be a nobody. Who the hell are you? Did you come to the Tianfeng domain to find me and the thing on the 7th floor of the inscription tower? Master Chen's voice was hoarse. If he had only had some doubts before, He was now certain of it. The other party's strength and ability were unfathomable. It was impossible for him to be an ordinary person. However, his actions were so secretive that it was impossible for ordinary people to know his goal. How did she know? How did he coincidentally sneak into Heavenly Wind Inscription City and borrow his strength to enter the 7th level? That's right. As far as Master Chen was concerned, perhaps the reason why Luo Qingtong was able to enter the 7th level of the Inscription Tower was because he'd forcefully charged through the light at the entrance to the 7th level, causing a flaw to appear in the light at the entrance to the 7th level. That was why Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng were able to succeed. However, how did the other party know that his goal was the 7th floor of the Inscription Tower and set him up to attack the light at the entrance of the 7th floor? Master Chen's mind was dark and suspicious. He didn't believe that a person like Luo Qingtong just happened to appear in this Heavenly Wind Inscription City and was only going against him for Song City. If he misunderstood, it would save Luo Qingtong the trouble of explaining. The more the other party imagined, the better. It would save her the trouble of thinking of excuses and reasons to cover up her lie. After all, the fact that she came from the true Spill continent, a 9th-grade starfield, could not be exposed. Chapter 2385. Luo Qingtong's face was indifferent. She looked at Master Chen and said, "Do you think I will answer you?" No, on the contrary, she was happy to accept Master Chen's imagination. You! Master Chen's face was pale. Did Luo Qingtong really come prepared as he thought? Then, at this moment, did she also calculate that he would escape, so she deliberately intercepted him here? Were there any of her men around here? Master Chen's heart was full of doubts. He looked at the air around him and hesitated to the extreme. At this moment, Luo Qingtong suddenly said, "Okay, don't hide anymore. Come out." As she spoke, Luo Qingtong suddenly shot out a stream of energy from her hand. In an instant, with a boom, a ripple suddenly spread out from the place where Luo Qingtong's energy was shot out. Then, one figure after another appeared from the ripples of space. Boom! Master Chen's heart skipped a beat as soon as he saw those figures. He instantly believed Luo Qingtong's words. He directly ignored his serious injuries and attacked again. His inscription mark was extremely tough and was at the level of a heaven-level spirit seal master. Even if such an inscription mark was forcibly self-destructed, the inscription power in his body would not dissipate instantly. Under the circumstances of using some secret methods, he could still exert a lot of strength. Boom! As Master Chen attacked, the attack in his hand suddenly burst out like a rain curtain and rushed towards those figures. With Master Chen's eyesight, he could naturally feel that the strength of those figures opposite him was much stronger than Luo Qingtong. They were even not much inferior to him before. There were so many powerhouses. Who was the opponent? That Xie Qi really had an extraordinary background. Master Chen's heart was full of resentment. He almost spared no effort and attacked forward. Idiot! Seeing Master Chen's action, Yu Mingqian's voice was cold. Her body was hidden under a black robe, and even her face was covered. He didn't know how Luo Qingtong discovered their existence. Obviously, with the opponent's strength, she should not be able to detect their existence. Yu Mingqian's eyes were cold as she flicked her finger. Buzz! The force he shot out from his hand turned into a huge inscription pattern in the air. In an instant, it eliminated the violent power that Master Chen desperately shot out. The inscription pattern versus the inscription mark. He won so easily. It completely ignored the common inscription mark that only the inscription mark could resist it. You! Master Chen's face suddenly changed. He looked at the black-robed men standing in front of him, and the muscles on his face twitched heavily. In this world, the only one who could use inscription patterns to break a battle inscription mark was the battle inscription mark that he had risked his life to create. Only one person. Chapter 2386. Speaking of Yu Mingqian, he was a legendary figure in the Central Inscription Union. Since the establishment of the Central Inscription Union for so many years, he was the only one who had appeared since ancient times. Legend had it that he had a natural comprehension of inscription techniques. Any inscription pattern in his hands was like a child's drawing. Not only that, he could also inscribe extremely powerful inscription patterns with very little strength. In his hands, the power of all the inscription patterns would be greatly amplified. Legend had it that before he became a spirit seal master, he was already able to inscribe inscription patterns at this level. After advancing to the level of spirit seal master, the power of the inscription patterns he casually inscribed was comparable to ordinary battle inscription marks. Therefore, Yu Mingqian's attack just now was so easy. It easily broke the battle inscription mark that Master Chen had thrown out with his life. After guessing Yu Mingqian's identity, Master Chen's face turned even paler. This was because he knew his identity. He was a traitor of the Central Inscription Union. Not only that, the reason he betrayed the Central Inscription Union was because there might be something on the 7th floor of the inscription tower, the whereabouts of the god's inscription. Back then, Master Chen had accidentally found out about the god's inscription and was hunted down by the Central Inscription Union. For so many years, the Central Inscription Union had never given up on hunting him down. And Master Chen had also found out that there might be the whereabouts of the god's inscription tower in Tianfeng Inscription City after so many years of searching. If not for this, why would he, a dignified heaven-level spirit seal master and a battle spirit master, join a third-rate inscription city like Langyu Inscription City and play tricks for them, cripple the Tianfeng Inscription City lord, and seize the inscription tower of Tianfeng Inscription City? It was because he didn't want to leak the news of the Tianfeng Inscription Tower and wanted to hide his identity to obtain the item on the 7th floor of the inscription tower. However, all of his plans were shattered by the appearance of Luo Qingtong. Now, the people of the Central Inscription Union had appeared directly in front of him. And the person leading the team was Yu Mingqian, who was known as the #1 person below the president of the Central Inscription Union. This person's inscription prowess was something that even the elders of the Central Union could not compare to. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't cultivate martial arts due to his weak body, he wouldn't have been able to become a battle soul master. Even the president wouldn't have been his match. Master Chen had lost all hope when such a powerful man had personally led a team to capture him, especially when he was in such a sorry state and was severely injured. As for Luo Qingtong's existence, he imagined that she was a hidden secret of the Central Inscription Association, a rising star, and a genius. As a result, he no longer had any thoughts of resisting. No wonder Xie Qi was able to stop him at the right time. It turned out that he had already been targeted by the people from the Central Union. With that thought in mind, Master Chen's face turned gloomy. Young! His lips trembled as he prepared to beg Yu Mingyu for mercy regarding the matter of the inscription of God. Even though the other party already knew the whereabouts of the divine inscriptions on the 7th floor of the inscription tower, they still didn't dare to offend him. However, there were still some things related to the divine inscriptions that he didn't know. He could use this to exchange for a chance to live. Chapter 2387. However, just as he opened his mouth, boom! Luo Qingtong, who had been standing to the side and watching him and Yu Mingqian fight, moved. Bang! At a close distance, the light of the life and death yin-yang sword in Luo Qingtong's hand flew up in an instant and slashed towards Master Chen. This ray of light was piercingly cold. It attacked almost as soon as Master Chen recognized Yu Mingqian's identity and was about to speak. At that time, Master Chen's desperate attack had just been defeated by the light of the inscription pattern released by Yu Mingqian. And because he thought that Luo Qingtong and Yu Mingqian were in cahoots, he didn't guard against Luo Qingtong at all. After all, in Master Chen's opinion, Luo Qingtong's words before were all to scare him. Since the other party was from the Central Inscription Association, it was naturally impossible for them to ignore the orders of the Central Inscription Association and attack him. Not to mention, with Yu Mingqian and the others here, it was even more impossible for them to let him die. After all, they still needed to ask him about the inscription of God. However, Master Chen didn't expect that all of this was misled by Luo Qingtong. She had nothing to do with Yu Mingqian and the others at all. She only noticed that someone was spying in the dark, so she deliberately exposed Yu Mingqian and the others' whereabouts to create an opportunity to attack Master Chen. After all, it was very likely that the other party knew what was on the 7th floor. Luo Qingtong couldn't let him leave alive and spread the news that she had obtained the whereabouts of the inscription of God. Boom! Luo Qingtong's sword was fast and ruthless. Except for Yu Mingqian, who had a premonition from the beginning, even the other men in black didn't react. Luo Qingtong actually dared to attack Master Chen in front of them. After all, they knew in their hearts that the other party was not in cahoots with them at all. When she saw them, Shouldn't she take advantage of the moment when they were entangled with Master Chen to immediately leave? Almost all the men in black thought that the purpose of Luo Qingtong calling out their whereabouts was to seize the opportunity to leave. Only Yu Mingqian saw through Luo Qingtong's plan. Boom! After he had broken Master Chen's attack, he flicked his sleeve and said, "Master Chen!" The silvery white brocade fluttered and released an inscription pattern, blocking Luo Qingtong's attack. "Catch her!" Yu Mingqian's voice was ice-cold. Therefore, it was highly likely that Master Chen had already obtained the item he was looking for. He didn't care if it had anything to do with the divine inscriptions or not. He had to bring Luo Qingtong and Master Chen back with him. However, just as his voice rang out, with a boom, something astonishing happened. The ray of light from Luo Qingtong's life and death yin-yang sword pierced through the inscription pattern in mid-air and struck Master Chen heavily. In an instant, blood spurted out. Master Chen's head was directly split in half by Luo Qingtong's sword. He didn't resist at all. He didn't even have time to react before he became a ghost under Luo Qingtong's sword. What? Yu Mingqian's heart clenched tightly. His eyes hidden under the black hood stared directly at Luo Qingtong. Clear and cold, dark and heavy. Chapter 2388. Yu Mingqian's gaze was fixed on Luo Qingtong. This was the first time he couldn't see through a person. The other party's strength wasn't particularly strong, but every time she did something, her methods were unexpected. Previously, at the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord Mansion, he thought that the City Lord and the others were dead for sure. He didn't expect her to reverse the situation. Not only that, the other party had just forcibly broken through his attack and killed Chen Meng. How on earth did she do it? After Luo Qingtong's attack succeeded, she immediately flew away. When she was at the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord Mansion, she had already noticed Yu Mingqian and the others hiding in the dark. It was only because she noticed it a little late that she revealed a lot of her trump cards. However, she hid the power of the life and death yin-yang sword. Otherwise, she wouldn't have succeeded in one strike. As for why Yu Mingqian was puzzled that she could penetrate his attack and kill Master Chen, it was naturally because after the life and death yin-yang sword was upgraded, the life and death chi could move according to Luo Qingtong's wishes. When the sword slashed out just now, when it hit the inscription pattern of Yu Mingqian in mid-air, Luo Qingtong had already turned it into life chi. The life chi was full of vitality and didn't have any offensive power. Naturally, it wouldn't collide with the power of Yu Mingqian's inscription pattern and directly pass through it. When it hit Master Chen's body, the life chi turned back into the death chi. Under such circumstances, Luo Qingtong was able to kill Master Chen with one strike. It was also because of the effect of the life and death yin-yang sword's upgrade that Luo Qingtong dared to take the risk of discovering the whereabouts of Yu Mingqian and the others. Otherwise, she would have shot herself in the foot if she failed to divert Master Chen's attention, and Master Chen took advantage of the situation to sneak away. Luo Qingtong's figure was extremely fast and disappeared in front of the group of black-clothed men in an instant. The latter and the others only came to their senses when Luo Qingtong's figure disappeared and hurriedly chased after Luo Qingtong. However, Luo Qingtong had blood eye. How could she give them a chance to catch her? It would have been fine if these men in black had reacted in advance and stopped her. With so many powerhouses, Luo Qingtong may not be able to successfully break through. But now, she had already seized the opportunity to leave, so how could she still be caught? Luo Qingtong's figure completely disappeared in front of the group of black-robed men. The latter and the others searched for her for a while, but they couldn't find her whereabouts, so they could only give up. "Young guild master, please punish us for our incompetence." The group of black-clothed men returned. They knelt in front of Yu Mingqian, feeling incomparably guilty. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly when speaking. They never thought that Luo Qingtong would be able to escape so easily in front of them. If Luo Qingtong's strength was tyrannical, they would be no match for her. Unfortunately, Luo Qingtong's strength was ordinary. Even her inscription strength was only at the senior inscription master level. The group of black-clothed men lowered their heads and didn't dare to raise them at all. Yu Mingqian's face was indifferent. He looked in the direction Luo Qingtong had left, and his eyes never left her from the beginning to the end. His expression was strange. When he brought people to capture Chen Meng, he never thought that he would fail. Moreover, he was defeated at the hands of a young man he had never heard of. Chapter 2389. Xie Qi. His cold jade-like eyes looked in the direction that Luo Qingtong had left in and flickered slightly. Bring Chen Meng's body back. Also, investigate this young man called Xie Qi for me. Let's see who he is. Like Master Chen, Yu Mingqian didn't believe that Luo Qingtong was just a nobody. However, this young man had all kinds of abilities and extraordinary means. He had never even heard of him. When did such a person appear in this endless star field? Yu Mingqian's eyes narrowed. The men in black kneeling in front of him hurriedly agreed. At the same time, a man in black mustered up his courage and said, "Young President, Xie Qi claims to be Song Cheng's disciple. Should we make a move on the people of Tianfeng Inscription City?" As he spoke, his eyes were filled with coldness and sternness. Master Chen was the person that their main president wanted to capture. After many years of planning, they finally found traces of him. The main president had even appointed the young president to capture him personally. It was obvious how important he was to this. Now that Chen Meng was dead, even if they brought his body back, they would probably be punished. Therefore, he wondered if he should make a move on the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City and the others. After all, looking at how Luo Qingtong had helped the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City and the others, he must have a deep relationship with them. However, as soon as he spoke, he heard Yu Mingqian's cold voice. No need, he's just a stepping stone. If the other party really thought so highly of Song Cheng and the others, he wouldn't have left so quickly. He wouldn't have deliberately exposed their figures just to kill Chen Meng when he knew that they were hiding. How was Song Cheng and the others even worthy of his attention at all? Just as Master Chen had guessed, Yu Mingqian also thought that Luo Qingtong had appeared in Tianfeng Inscription City under the name of Song Cheng's disciple. He only wanted to borrow Master Chen's help to obtain the item on the 7th level of the inscription tower. Since that was the case, capturing Song Cheng and the others would be useless. It would be easy for others to criticize him. He, Yu Mingqian, had always disdained to give others something to talk about. People would think that he was purposely shirking his responsibility. She escaped from my hands. Naturally, I will capture her and find out everything about Chen Meng. Report this matter to the Federation of Trade Unions and tell them that I have a way to find her. Tell foster father and the others not to worry. Yu Mingqian's voice was indifferent and cold. The group of black-clothed men hurriedly complied. With the young master's support, they naturally didn't have to worry so much. As for the young man named Xie Qi, how could he possibly escape from the young master's pursuit? Chapter 2390. Phew, I've finally gotten rid of them. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. Those black-clothed men were extremely powerful. Especially the person who stopped her from killing Master Chen. His inscription skills were even more unfathomable. Even if Luo Qingtong used her blood eyes, she might not be able to defeat Master Chen's battle inscription mark with her inscription patterns. However, that black-clothed man had done it easily. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party's inscription skills were far above Master Chen's, then it was because the other party's control over inscription patterns was terrifying. No matter which one it was, it meant that his identity was not ordinary. Fortunately, she had made the prompt decision to expose their tracks and take advantage of Master Chen's suspicion to kill them by force. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble in the future. Luo Qingtong thought about it, and the light in her eyes became even colder. She could tell that those black-clothed men were here for Master Chen. It was even possible that they were here for his purpose of coming to Tianfeng Inscription City, which was the inscription tower. If that was the case, if she couldn't kill Master Chen this time, the fact that she had obtained something from the 7th floor of the inscription tower, or even the divine inscription, would be exposed. Luo Qingtong didn't know if Master Chen knew that the thing on the 7th floor of the inscription tower was the divine inscription. However, as long as there was a slight possibility that the matter of her obtaining the divine inscription would be exposed, Luo Qingtong wouldn't allow it. Therefore, Master Chen had to die. Let's go, let's leave this place first. Luo Qingtong said to Little Pig, who had popped its head out of her arms. The latter had just jumped out of her sleeve. Hearing this, it immediately said to her, "Ah? Leave this place? You're not going back to Tianfeng Inscription City?" It looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "I'm not going back." Luo Qingtong shook her head indifferently. Those black-clothed men are very likely from the Central Inscription Association. Luo Qingtong wasn't very clear about the division of forces in the outer realm. However, considering Master Chen's previous identity as a heavenly-level Spirit Seal Master and Battle Spirit Master, there were not many people in the world who could follow him without him noticing. With such a powerful inscription skill, the chances of him being someone from the Central Inscription Association were extremely high. Luo Qingtong clearly knew that it was extremely likely that the other party was eyeing Heavenly Wind Inscription City, and might even be eyeing Heavenly Wind Inscription Tower. Wouldn't that be walking right into a trap? In any case, the matters in Heavenly Wind Inscription City were more or less settled. The people from Langyu Inscription City had launched an ambush in the middle of the night. Moreover, Shi and Song Cheng had returned alive. This meant that the people from Langyu Inscription City had lost the contest for the Inscription Tower. In addition to the bet that she had signed with the people from Langyu City, the people from Langyu City could no longer pose any threat to Tianfeng City. It didn't matter whether Luo Qingtong went back or not. If she went back, it would be easy for people to wait for her. She was not stupid. What about Song Cheng and the others? Aren't you afraid that those men in black will find trouble with them? Little Pig said. Especially Song Cheng. He was her master. Could it be that Luo Qingtong didn't care about him? This wasn't Luo Qingtong's personality. Luo Qingtong glanced at it. If I don't go back, it will be the greatest help to them. Her master and disciple relationship with Song Cheng came suddenly. She had asked Song Cheng to help her set up her identity long ago. Chapter 2391. Under such circumstances, how could they waste their energy to deal with Song Cheng and the rest? As long as she didn't go back, Song Cheng and the rest wouldn't be implicated. On the contrary, if she went back and was caught, even if she was lucky enough to escape, Song Cheng and the rest would be in big trouble. It would be better to give the other party the illusion that she would leave immediately after achieving her goal. In fact, that was the case. After Yu Mingqian and the rest left, they stayed in Tianfeng Inscription City for a while. Firstly, they wanted to find out what Master Chen was doing in Tianfeng Inscription City. Secondly, they wanted to see if there was any relationship between Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng and the rest. After all, if Luo Qingtong was really related to Song Cheng and the rest, she would definitely come back to take a look. At that time, they would be able to catch a turtle in a jar. However, Luo Qingtong didn't come back in the end. This made Yu Mingqian's subordinates completely dispel the idea of dealing with Song Cheng and the rest. After all, who would be willing to do something that was completely useless? On the other hand, Yu Mingqian looked at the wisp of aura in his hand. This was something he had extracted from the wound on Chen Meng's corpse. Yu Mingqian raised his hand and instantly, a small inscription array appeared in front of him. If one looked carefully, they would realize that the lines of this array were the same as the inscription lines array that Luo Qingtong had been teleported over. Inscription Man-Searching Array. The inscription array that could only be activated after gathering the power of Tianfeng Inscription City for so many years was now presented in Yu Mingqian's palm in an extremely small and exquisite manner. It was displayed by him. If Song Cheng and the rest were to come and see this, they would probably cry out in surprise. The other party's inscription technique ability had simply reached a level that could shock the world. However, the wisp of aura that Yu Mingqian had obtained couldn't be like how Song Cheng had summoned Luo Qingtong. He couldn't directly summon her from across the star field. After all, this wasn't a physical object and the aura was too faint. However, it was still possible to track Luo Qingtong's whereabouts. Yu Mingqian's eyes narrowed slightly. He directly released a wave of energy and activated the array. At this moment, in a star field not far away from Tianfeng region, a group of people was rushing towards Tianfeng region. The man in the lead had black hair and black clothes. He wore a golden jade crown and wore a white jade mask. His eyes were as sharp as swords. Behind him, two men who were also wearing white jade masks. Swoosh! A golden lights Yu Mingqian. Master, the man in front of him, with the black man in the star field. He with the black man in front of Yu Mingqian's face. According to the news from the underground palace, a young man called Xie Qi has appeared in Tianfeng Inscription City. They suspect that he's an evil doctor. You with withs. S with you of use. You yuet to you us with he raised his hand and took the letter from Bei Qing. After glancing at it, he said in a hoarse voice, "Let's go over first." Yi Qianxian's voice was very deep and cold. He had spent a lot of effort to find out that Luo Qingtong might have been summoned to Tianfeng region. However, he didn't know her exact location. Chapter 2392. Yes. Feng Yu and Bei Qing answered in unison. Then Feng Yu hesitated for a moment before looking at Yi Qianxian and asking, "Master, about Tiandu." His heart was filled with worry. Master had left Tiandu by force. After His Majesty summoned Master back, he was ready to choose an imperial concubine for him. Master was unwilling, so he left by force. The two of them even got into a fight. If it weren't for the fact that her master had recovered some of her strength and the strength of her meridians due to the evil doctor's treatment, she would have been imprisoned in the palace by now. But even so, His Majesty didn't completely give up. After they left, the powerhouses of Tiandu came out in full force, searching for Yi Qianxian's whereabouts all over the world. Under such circumstances, Feng Yu's heart was naturally worried. They didn't care. His Majesty wouldn't kill them. But if the identity of the evil doctor was exposed, let the people of Nether Palace stop them. Spread my whereabouts and appearance everywhere in the star field to lure them away. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. He naturally knew what his good imperial father was planning. The other party simply wanted him to give birth to a few more children before he died so that he could continue his bloodline. It would be best if he had a few more heavenly vein bodies. Even if they only had half of his physique, it didn't matter. As long as they were under his control, it would be fine. But how could he do as his father wished? Not to mention that he already wanted Luo Qingtong. Even if he never met Luo Qingtong in this life, he wouldn't follow her arrangements. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given up all his strength and power and left True Spill Continent. Unfortunately, his father didn't seem to understand this truth and only wanted to force him to submit. Unfortunately, in this world, he would only follow his own heart. No one could control his life and thoughts. It's time for Nether Palace to return. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. Because he couldn't solve the heavenly vein body, he had almost scattered his forces. Whether it was the foundation that Heaven Capital had laid down for him, or the Black Nether Palace that he had secretly established, all of it had been dissolved by him. He only brought a portion of his elite troops to True Spill Continent. Yi Qianxian's thinking was very simple. If he could find a way to cure the heavenly vein body in the True Spill Continent, then he would return to Heaven Capital. At that time, everything could be rebuilt with a wave of his hand. If not, those forces and strengths were no longer important to him. It didn't matter what happened in the end. However, at this time, Yi Qianxian had decided to return to Tiandu because of Luo Qingtong. Previously, he'd had his people reorganize their forces in the outer realms. Although he had only integrated a small part of it, he could still use it to play a game of hide-and-seek with his father. Naturally, he would protect his woman. No one could lay a finger on her. Yes. Feng Yu and the others nodded in agreement. Bei Qing was especially elated. Black Nether Palace was an influence that Yi Qianxian had single-handedly established. Master's strength had once disdained the heavens and stood at the pinnacle. No one could compare to him. Black Nether Palace was an incomparably tyrannical force among the many star fields. No one dared to provoke them. But as Master retired, Black Nether Palace's influence gradually shrank and disappeared. Now that Master had given the order, Black Nether Palace would return to the star fields. At that time, everyone would know that the Master of Black Nether Palace had returned. Chapter 2393. The group of people agreed loudly, but Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes and looked at the place where his left ring finger was. That place should have been where he was wearing the Shifeng dragon ring, but now there was nothing there. It was empty, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable in his heart. The Shifeng dragon ring was the symbol of the young emperor of Tiandu, and it was also the keepsake of the future successor of Tiandu. At the same time, it was also the medium through which Yi Qianxian and Luo Qingtong could contact each other. However, when he left Tiandu, in order to prevent the emperor of Tiandu from using the connection between the Shifeng dragon ring and the royal family to confirm his whereabouts, Yi Qianxian had forcefully used his own strength to take it down and seal it. Right now, the Shifeng dragon ring was in his storage ring. As long as he didn't take it out, his good father wouldn't be able to find his whereabouts. He also wouldn't be able to use the connection between the Shifeng Dragon Ring and the 9 Nether Phoenix Ring to make a move on Luo Qingtong. Of course, the other party might not put Luo Qingtong in his eyes, let alone make a move on her. However, it was better to be safe than sorry. Yi Qianxian wouldn't even let the other party have the slightest chance. His Qingtong was a peerless pearl that he held in his hands. The Emperor of Tiandu didn't realize how powerful and brilliant she was now. One day, he would regret looking down on Luo Qingtong today. As for Yi Qianxian, he only needed to protect Luo Qingtong well and not let her be obstructed or harmed before she grew up. Let's go to Tianfeng Inscription City. He really wanted to see that cunning and willful woman. It didn't matter even if he was angered to the point of jumping his feet when they met. The group of people rushed to Tianfeng Inscription City. And in Tianfeng Inscription City, after a few days of nourishment, the wisp of aura that came from Luo Qingtong killing Master Chen in Yu Mingqian's hand became thicker and thicker. After that wisp of aura had been nourished to a very solid state, Yu Mingqian clasped his hands together. In an instant, the inscription man-seeking formation in his hand glowed brightly. Shwa! A faintly discernible ray of light rose into the air and swept toward the void. In an instant, the beam of light pierced through the void and rushed toward a city in the Tianfeng domain. At this moment, Luo Qingtong was carrying Little Pig into the city gate. The mask on her face had been taken off, revealing a face covered by a large birthmark. Because of the birthmark, her originally beautiful face looked extremely ferocious and terrifying. Under such circumstances, almost no one wanted to get close to Luo Qingtong. They waved their palms in front of their faces and said angrily, "What bad luck! Why did I run into such an ugly little beggar?" That's right, it was the little beggar. Luo Qingtong smeared the part of her face that still looked white and clean, trying to make her face unrecognizable. She was wearing an ordinary linen dress with half of her sleeves rolled up. She was carrying a black pig in her hand. With such an appearance, it would be strange if those who wanted to get close to her didn't retreat. And this was the result that Luo Qingtong wanted. On the other hand, Little Pig's entire person, no pig, was indescribably lifeless. Originally, he was only good at being pink and cute. But now, he was dyed black by Luo Qingtong. His heart was in pain. Chapter 2394. While it was muttering in its heart, Luo Qingtong raised her head with a swoosh. Buzz! In the sky, a faintly discernible virtual line swept in her direction. Looking at the power of the light that seemed to come straight from the void, Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered slightly. She was glad that she had the habit of opening her blood pupil to check the surrounding defenses and arrangements whenever she arrived at a place. Otherwise, she would not have been able to detect the appearance of this light. Seeing the light rushing towards her, Luo Qingtong immediately dodged and rushed into a dark alley, even though there was no murderous intent or malice in the light. "Oh, I need to go to the washroom." Her voice was loud and careless, with the coarse voice of a teenager who had undergone puberty. Several practitioners, who were shocked by her actions, spat fiercely when they saw her running into the alley and ignored her. There was no need to pay attention to such an ignorant and uneducated little beggar. After rushing into the alley, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and stood still with a swoosh. She stood in the depths of the alley and watched the light that rushed out of the void turn in mid-air and continue to rush towards her. Her eyes flashed fiercely. Swoosh! She raised her hand and drew out the life and death sword. A sword light slashed towards the invisible light in mid-air. If it were not for the reflection of Luo Qingtong's blood pupil, she would not have been able to see it at all. Bang! The sword light slashed heavily on the virtual line. If it were an ordinary weapon, it would not have been able to hurt this invisible virtual line. However, Luo Qingtong's life and death sword was different. The life and death chi that it carried were the most original forces in the world. This virtual line was invisible and untouchable in the eyes of others. However, when Luo Qingtong slashed out with her sword, it was immediately shattered. Not only that, but the light of life and death was also rotating in reverse. It seemed to follow the power of the illusory line of light. With a boom, it blended with the power of the illusory line of light and rushed back. Boom boom boom. In the Heavenly Wind Inscription City, Yu Mingqian's room was filled with thousands of waves. Luo Qingtong's sword slashed out. Not only did it shatter Yu Mingqian's illusory line of power, but it also backfired on him. Bang! The inscription man-searching formation in Yu Mingxuan's palm exploded into pieces in an instant. Not only that, but the power of inscription patterns rose around him one after another, but they were completely unable to stop the backlash from the inscription man-hunting formation in his hand. With a boom, his figure suddenly retreated, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. In the center of his palm, there was a deep and bright red mark. Just a little bit more and his palm would have been cut in half. Chapter 2395. Yu Mingqian was even more interested in the young man named Xie Qi. He waved his hand, and in an instant, the aura of the broken inscription man-hunting array was gathered in his hand. Then, with a swoosh, the faintly discernible figure appeared in the broken aura of the inscription man-hunting array. The young man was wearing a coarse linen shirt, and the birthmark on his face almost covered his entire face. He looked very hideous and disgusting. However, the light in her eyes was extraordinarily charming. A faint bloody light rippled in his eyes. It was extremely evil and demonic, making people unable to look away. This was a pair of bewitching eyes like a demon. Yu Mingqian stared at the pair of eyes and suddenly laughed. Xie Qi. With a wave of his sleeve, he crushed the aura in his palm. He had changed his mind. The inscription ability that the other party had displayed was amazing. The ability that she had shown when she killed Master Chen was still within his acceptable range. Now, she was able to break his inscription man-hunting array from 1,000 miles away. Not only that, but she also caused the array to backfire. This was a bit beyond his expectations. The other party might really have information about the inscription of God. Yu Mingqian originally only suspected that Chen Meng betrayed the Central Inscription Association because of the inscription of God. Now, after seeing Luo Qingtong's performance, he was a bit more certain. If this was the case, then he couldn't use the previous method to deal with the other party. Moreover, his inscription man-hunting array was broken by the other party. If he couldn't lock onto the other party's tracks, it would be easy for her to escape. If this was the case, Yu Mingqian narrowed his eyes. He raised his hand and stroked the silver ring on his left index finger. The butterfly pattern on it was vivid and lifelike. As he stroked it, it seemed to vibrate its wings and was about to fly out. Then let's have some fun. He chuckled, flicked his sleeve, and walked out. In the alley, Luo Qingtong narrowed her bloody eyes and looked at the illusory energy that had been shattered by her. In the end, it whistled sharply and rolled back. She frowned slightly. It's the power of the inscription. Luo Qingtong couldn't be wrong. After all, Song Chang had used a similar method to summon her to Sky Wind Inscription City. Yu Mingqian's inscription man-hunting array was different from the one Song Chang and the others had used. But Luo Qingtong could still sense it. Someone is tracking my whereabouts. Luo Qingtong thought for a moment and figured out what was going on. It should be those men in black. Thinking of the leader of the black-clothed man, Yu Mingqian, whose inscription strength was far beyond ordinary people, Luo Qingtong's brows tightened even more. Fortunately, she discovered it in time. Otherwise, once she was stuck, it would not be so easy to get rid of it. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong immediately put away the long sword in her hand. As she walked out of the alley towards the city, she said to the little pig in her arms, "Go and see if Tuanzi is awake later. When I wake up, let it restore my face." At that time, she would change her appearance again and guarantee that those men in black would not be able to find her whereabouts. However, as soon as Luo Qingtong spoke, she felt the little pig in her arms suddenly stiffen. "Master, you don't know?" The little pig looked at her with trembling eyes. "That face can't be changed back for the time being." Swoosh. When Luo Qingtong heard its words, she stopped in her tracks. Chapter 2396. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by temporarily unable to change back? Luo Qingtong's eyes glinted dangerously. Little Pig, on the other hand, trembled even more violently. "That's exactly what I mean," it cried. "At that time I was going to finish what I wanted to say, but it was too late. And then your actions were too fast. In short, that little furball said that the power it used to change your face was the last bit of power it had left. Once it changed, it couldn't change back. Unless its strength was restored." Little Pig's voice trailed off as it spoke. That little furball was a realm beast. How could it be so easy to restore its strength? Ordinary spiritual energy and strength wouldn't be of much use to its recovery. Therefore, Luo Qingtong could only live with this nearly disfigured face for a short period of time. Little Pig was originally going to remind Luo Qingtong when they were in the transmission array. However, before it could say anything, they arrived at the destination. Luo Qingtong immediately agreed. There was no way for it to stop her, okay? Little Pig mumbled as he thought of this. Its 2 ears were limp and drooped on its forehead, making it look pitiful. That's enough. Luo Qingtong was speechless as she looked at Little Pig's pitiful act. However, the situation at that time was indeed like this. And judging from the fact that they were about to arrive at the destination, even if Little Pig reminded her, she would definitely choose to change her face. In that case, she couldn't blame Little Pig. If she didn't get rid of this birthmark, even if she disguised herself in the future, there would always be a flaw. Forget it, there were benefits to not getting rid of it. Those black-robed men would think that this was her real appearance. Like this, once she returned to the true Spill continent and changed her face back, no one would be able to associate her with Xie Qi. With this in mind, Luo Qingtong wasn't anxious at all. At most, it would be a little troublesome. Once and for all in the future, it wouldn't be bad. Luo Qingtong immediately put Little Pig down and continued to walk toward the city with him in her arms. This was a mercenary city. Just like Heavenly Wind Inscription City, this was also a unique city in the Heavenly Wind region. This city was specially built for the rogue cultivators who wandered around the edge of power. Many cultivators cultivated to a certain realm without relying on a sect because of a moment's opportunity or personal talent. They didn't want to join a sect or be bound by restrictions. However, they needed to secure cultivation resources. That was why a place like Mercenary City existed. The rogue cultivators gathered together and formed mercenary groups to accept missions in Mercenary City. Large mercenary groups were strong enough to compete with sects. However, there were not as many rules. If they wanted to, they could stay in a mercenary group. If they couldn't, there were no restrictions. The mercenaries gathered together because of the benefits. There was cooperation and division of labor. They could get what they wanted, but they didn't need to join a sect. This went along with the wishes of many people. Even some sect disciples would come to Mercenary City to form teams and train with others when they wanted to obtain something they needed. Or hired mercenaries to act on his behalf. This kind of thing was very common. Chapter 2397. That's right, Luo Qingtong wanted to return to the true Spill continent. But she didn't know where to go. She also didn't know which star field the true Spill continent belonged to. It was reasonable to say that Song Chung should have told her this. But wasn't this just a plan that couldn't keep up with the changes? Luo Qingtong originally wanted to wait until the matter at Heavenly Wind Inscription City was resolved, and then ask Song Cheng to tell her about returning. But who would have thought that the black-robed men would be implicated? Now that Luo Qingtong couldn't return to Heavenly Wind Inscription City, she could only find another way to return to the true Spill continent. And the most important thing was to determine where the true Spill continent was. Luckily, when Luo Qingtong left earlier, she overheard someone talking about the mercenary city on the way. She naturally came over. Asking those mercenaries to help her inquire about things was naturally better than asking around blindly. Moreover, it was convenient and fast, and wouldn't attract attention. Luo Qingtong walked to a tall building located in the center of the city. This was the place where the various mercenary groups and powerhouses issued and accepted missions. There were all kinds of mission descriptions here. Luo Qingtong glanced around and found that there were people coming and going, and it was very noisy. There were all kinds of noisy laughter and shouts mixed in. The voices were extremely loud, and it was as noisy as a market. Her appearance in the mercenary city didn't attract anyone's attention. Luo Qingtong looked around and soon found the place to check for information. But just as she was about to ask someone to help find the whereabouts of the true Spill continent, she found that she had no money. That's right, it was the literal meaning. She was poor. Luo Qingtong listened to the other party report the price, and then looked at the money she had left. She instantly felt a headache. How long had it been since she had worried about money? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched, and she lifted Little Pig out of the room. Can I use this to pay first? Before she could finish her sentence, Little Pig began to squeal in an instant. It hugged Luo Qingtong's hand and cried bitterly. In Luo Qingtong's mind it said, "Master, you can't do this. Master, I promise I won't do that again. Don't sell me out." Luo Qingtong looked at it speechlessly. He was just using it to pay off his debt first, and he could redeem it later. Why was it looking like it wanted to die? However, Luo Qingtong didn't know that Little Pig was afraid that if he sold himself, he would be eaten by someone else. How unjust would its death be? To think that it was an ancient divine pig. Alright, it was probably the most cowardly ancient mythological beast. However, it couldn't afford to offend this woman in front of it. Ayo, master. While Little Pig was trying his best to survive, the Mercenary Association members rejected Luo Qingtong's offer. "Sorry, customer. We only accept cash here." The man in charge of the counter looked at her with disdain, and his face was full of disdain. She wanted to use a pig to pay off her debt? Did she think that this was a slaughterhouse? What's more, this pig didn't have any appearance, let alone attack power. What could a pig like this do? It wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between one's teeth. That man didn't even bother to pay attention to Luo Qingtong. A burly man beside him stood up and raised his hand to kick Luo Qingtong out. Go. Where did this little beggar come from? How dare you behave so atrociously here? Get lost. Chapter 2398. As he spoke, he directly tried to grab Luo Qingtong. His face was full of impatience. His hands were even covered with spiritual energy. A powerful and terrifying power lingered in his palm. Obviously, he didn't care whether Luo Qingtong would be hurt or not. He even deliberately wanted to teach her a lesson. Looking at the palm that was surrounded by lingering spirit qi grabbing towards him, he felt a chill run down his spine. Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. At this moment, a light and cold voice came from the side. "Enough, Liao Laosan, she's just a child. Do you black iron people have to be like this?" While speaking, a hand reached out from the side and raised to catch the mercenary's hand. Luo Qingtong raised her head and saw a handsome face appear in front of her. The man's face was handsome and gentle. His whole temperament was very calm. After he caught the mercenary's hand, he said to Luo Qingtong, "Enough, little guy, leave here. This is not a place for you to be mischievous." The man's age looked no more than 25 years old, but he actually called her little guy. Luo Qingtong looked at her current beggar appearance. She had to admit that as a teenager, her appearance was indeed a little too small. Her figure was slender and tall, but that was only for women. As a boy, her figure and appearance were a little too childish and petite. There was a deep scar at the bottom corner of the man's left eye, which made his handsome and cold face look a bit rough and wild. But he didn't feel sinister or scary. On the contrary, it added a bit of wildness and domineering to his scholarly appearance. "Yo, Captain Gu." Seeing this man appear, the rough-looking mercenary immediately restrained himself. He looked at Luo Qingtong with disgust and said resentfully, "Enough today, I'll spare you for Captain Gu's sake. Get lost." As he spoke, he kicked towards Luo Qingtong, but the latter dodged. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. Hidden in the shadow of her head, she looked at him coldly and then at Regiment Commander Gu. She didn't say anything. She only nodded at Regiment Commander Gu. Then she pretended to be frightened and turned to leave. Luo Qingtong was very clear in her heart. If she were to lay her hands on that mercenary here, regardless of whether the other party would be able to find out in the end, she was afraid that this matter would be put under Commander Gu's name. The other party spoke up for her. Luo Qingtong couldn't let him take the blame, right? Let's wait for them to leave before we make our move. At that time, she would let this Liao Laosan know the consequences of bullying others. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She carried Little Pig out of that place and was about to head to another part of the hall. She had to think of a way to earn money. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong suddenly felt a headache coming on. Ever since she became famous in her previous life, she never had to worry about money again. To her, money was just a number. After coming to this strange world, Luo Qingtong didn't have to worry about money because she was the eldest daughter of the marquis household of the Easternly nation and later became famous in the Black Field. But who would have thought that she would be summoned to the 6-star region by Song Cheng and become poor all of a sudden? When she thought of how she didn't have enough money to investigate, Luo Qingtong's brows immediately furrowed. Chapter 2399. Liao Laosen, what's the meaning of this? This is obviously purple blood realga grass. How can you say that it's purple jade grass? There's a huge difference in price between the two. You better explain this to me clearly. At the counter where Luo Qingtong had just left, the man beside Gu Yifeng slammed his fist on the counter. He lifted his hand and dragged the rugged mercenary named Liao Laosen out from behind the counter, yelling at him loudly. The mercenary named Liao Laosan had a rough appearance and looked like a burly man. But at this moment, the burly man standing beside Gu Yifeng was even thicker and stronger than him. He lifted Gu Yifeng up with one hand like he was lifting a little chick. His eyes were wide open like copper bells. "Hu Zhan!" Gu Yifeng shouted at the man. The latter immediately gritted his teeth and put down Liao Laosan. Then, he looked at Gu Yifeng with an aggrieved expression and said, "Leader, you can't let them do whatever they want. These Black Iron people are taking advantage of the fact that they're in control of the Mercenary Association this year. They're deceiving us and embezzling our mission rewards. Look at the medicinal herbs we brought back. They've all been called inferior by him. But we've only managed to bring these herbs back after a narrow escape. These people are too much." Hu Zhan's words immediately attracted the agreement of many people in the hall. Yes, the Black Iron people are too much. They're in control of the mercenary city this year. All the missions in the city have to be accepted and completed through them. They're still not satisfied with this and even tried to take advantage of the mission rewards. Who doesn't know that missions to find medicinal herbs are the most profitable and profitable? These guys cheated us of our money by downgrading the quality of the herbs by a grade or even a few grades. Yes. Not only that, they even colluded with other people who came to issue missions and deliberately said that the herbs used to complete the missions were wrong. Not only did they embezzle the herbs, but they also reduced the mission rewards by more than half. A group of people were talking in low voices. "Sigh, there's nothing we can do. Who asked us to have no pharmacists here? We can only let them fool us. What else can we do?" Everyone felt indignant, but there was nothing they could do. They were all rogue cultivators. It was already not easy for him to cultivate to his current level. How could he have the opportunity to learn alchemy and alchemy? One had to know that these two things burn the most resources. The pharmacist apprentices in Mercenary City were also under the control of the Mercenary Association. They would listen to whoever took over the Mercenary Association. The Mercenary Guild in Mercenary City was held by the various large mercenary groups in the city. Chapter 2400. As soon as he said that, everyone looked towards the direction of the voice. They saw a petite and thin figure appear in front of Gu Yifeng and the others. She raised her hand and reached for the jade box on the counter. Inside the jade box was precisely the medicinal herb that had stirred up controversy. When Liao Laosen saw this, he immediately grabbed the hand that was stretched out. "Bah, you little beggar, what are you doing here? Did you touch the purple jade grass? What if you spoil it? Can you afford to compensate?" Liao Laosan's face was big and his neck was thick. His eyes were as big as copper bells. He had already seen who the person who appeared was. Wasn't it the little beggar that he just drove away? He sneered and said, "Yo, are you here to repay the kindness?" He glanced at Gu Yifeng and the others as he sneered even more. Unfortunately, this is not something that can be casually brushed aside by pestering endlessly. "You little beggar, if you have nothing to do, hurry up and get lost. Otherwise, don't blame me for making a move on you." In Liao Laosan's view, Luo Qingtong had just received a favor from Gu Yifeng. So when she saw that there was a problem on the other side, she deliberately came to disturb the situation. However, what was the use of a little beggar's words? Not to mention her, even if everyone in the hall spoke up for the Red Flame mercenary group, it would be of no use. The mercenary group's pharmacist was in their hands. If they said it was the purple jade grass, then it was the purple jade grass. Otherwise, the other party was a pharmacist or an alchemist. Otherwise, whatever she said would be useless. Liao Laosan's face was full of contempt. His gaze towards Luo Qingtong was full of threatening fierceness. Luo Qingtong glanced at him and ignored him. She was worried that she couldn't find a chance to deal with this Liao Laosan. As a result, the other party directly bumped into her hands. Moreover, this purple jade grass. Luo Qingtong looked at the medicinal herb in the jade box and her lips curled up. She thought that she had found a way to make money without deliberately attracting attention. Luo Qingtong's hand stretched out towards the jade box. Liao Laosan saw this and was even more furious. Just then a hand grabbed his wrist. "Let her see." Gu Yifeng's voice was cold. Behind him, the group of people from the Red Flame mercenary group also glared at Liao Laosan and the others. "That's right, let her see." "Damn it! I want to see if the grass that we risked our lives to bring back is really the purple-blooded realgar grass." Hu Zhan shouted. "Kid, tell me everything you know. As long as what you say is reasonable, we will support you." Hu Zhan and the others were already panicking. The Mercenary Association was controlled by the Black Iron Mercenary Association. No matter how powerful the Red Flame Mercenary Group was, in terms of mission completion and acceptance, they were no match for the Ebon Mercenary Group. Seeing that Luo Qingtong seemed to know that this medicinal herb was not the purple jade grass, they didn't care so much. They also didn't care that Luo Qingtong looked just like a little beggar. Hu Zhan raised his hand and carried her in front of him to protect her. That pair of eyes that were bigger than copper bells instantly stared back at Liao Laosan. If they dared to make a move, he would teach them a lesson. The power of the Black Iron Mercenary Group was not as strong as the Red Flame Mercenary Group. They were able to become the leader of the Mercenary Association because they took turns to be the banker. Chapter 2401. The Red Flame Mercenary Group had the least number of people among the high-ranking mercenary groups. But in terms of individual combat ability, they were the strongest among the high-ranking mercenary groups. Therefore, even if the other mercenary groups were better than them in terms of numbers and overall strength, they didn't dare to offend them. Not to mention Gu Yifeng's strength and reputation. Even in the whole Tianfeng region, he was an extremely powerful expert. Even the people from the 3 Stars region came to recruit him. Liao Laosan originally relied on the fact that he was in the right to speak softly to the Red Flame Mercenary Group. At this moment, when he saw the Red Flame Mercenary Group defending Luo Qingtong, his face turned purple, but he didn't dare to make a move on Luo Qingtong. "Humph, let her see." His face was full of ridicule. The Red Flame Mercenary Group was really desperate. They would listen to the words of a little beggar who suddenly appeared. He wanted to see what kind of waves they could make. Liao Laosan sneered in his heart. The Red Flame Mercenary Group's people indeed handed in the purple-blooded realgar grass. But the Black Iron Group's people had already made an agreement with the mission's sponsor. If this mission was completed, they would say that the other party brought the wrong medicinal ingredient, the purple jade grass, and the reward of this mission would be deducted. At that time, the sponsor's mission would be completed, and they would be able to get the corresponding reward. Wouldn't it be killing 2 birds with 1 stone? The one who would lose out was only the person who completed the mission. And this purple jade grass and the purple-blooded realgar grass were almost the same in appearance. Even the medicinal juice was almost the same. If one wasn't an alchemist or an alchemist, it would be difficult to distinguish the difference. Could it be that the little beggar in front of him was an alchemist or an alchemist? How could this be? Liao Laosan thought and immediately waited for Luo Qingtong to make a fool of herself. After Luo Qingtong picked up the jade box, Hu Zhan behind her suddenly said, "You little brat, could it be that you're an alchemist apprentice?" He looked at Luo Qingtong with a hopeful expression. However, the latter wasn't prepared to reveal her identity. Hu's alchemist apprentice was as poor as her, and even dressed as a beggar. It was too much to say that it was fun. What's more, in this place, alchemists and alchemists represented great fame and attention. Luo Qingtong couldn't wait to keep a low profile. There were too many suspicious points about her. If she was exposed to the sunlight and everyone's eyes, it would be strange if she didn't have a layer of skin peeled off. Not to mention that those men in black might not have given up on looking for her. Luo Qingtong thought of this, and suddenly thought of something and said, "No, but I was born very sensitive to medicinal herbs. I don't know why, but when I see them, I can vaguely sense their differences and distinguish them. Luo Qingtong said. Then she pretended to be careful as she looked at Hu Zhan and the others and said, "You can rest assured. Since you helped me, I will also help you." Hu Zhan's lips twitched when he heard Luo Qingtong's words. Could it be that this brat rushed up because they had just helped him? Then it's over. Hu Zhan thought that Luo Qingtong was at least a pharmacist apprentice. He didn't expect that she was nothing. As for what she said, about being able to distinguish the differences of various medicinal herbs by feeling, he didn't believe it at all, okay? How could there be such a magical ability? Chapter 2402. Hu Zhan's heart was completely cold. However, Luo Qingtong rushed out because of them. She wanted to stand up for them, so he couldn't blame Luo Qingtong. He just responded with N and os, but the expression on his face suddenly turned bitter. It's over. It's over. They're definitely going to suffer a loss this time. They're going to let Black Iron's people be proud again. As he thought about it, Hu Zhan immediately pulled at his messy hair. Gui Feng, who was beside him, glanced at Luo Qingtong and said in a deep voice, "It's okay. Just try your best. It doesn't matter if you can't tell." Anyway, Black Iron's people had already made up their minds to cheat them. It was good that Luo Qingtong had the heart to help them. It wasn't her fault that she couldn't help them. Gu Yifeng's words were already equivalent to comfort. Obviously, he and Hu Zhan also felt that Luo Qingtong just ran out impulsively. He was afraid that she couldn't help them. After hearing his words, Liao Laosan, who heard Luo Qingtong's words, also laughed loudly. "Oh my God! Did you all hear that? This little beggar said that she was born with a kind of distinguishing ability and can distinguish the difference between medicinal materials. Isn't this boasting too much? I say, people of the Red Flame mercenary group, this little beggar can't be a prop that you casually pulled from the streets, right? But if you want to find a prop to deal with our Black Iron's people, you have to find someone with a little brain. This stupidity makes me want to laugh until I can't stop." Liao Laosan laughed wildly. And the people of the Black Iron mercenary group behind him also did the same. Everyone roared with laughter. And the people of the Red Flame mercenary group had an ugly expression for a while. The people of the mercenary group behind them who supported them in the hall also looked at each other for a while. They didn't expect that this little beggar wasn't an apprentice alchemist. Then today's matter was considered a failure. At this time, Luo Qingtong's cold and indifferent voice sounded in the hall. There was a hint of coarseness in her voice that was deliberately suppressed, but it didn't sound low or unpleasant. On the contrary, it seemed even clearer because of this. Mixed in with the mocking laughter of the Black Iron mercenary group, it was extremely loud and pleasing to the ear. The purple blood realga grass and the purple jade grass are very similar in appearance. Those who aren't proficient in medicinal knowledge won't be able to tell them apart. But since it's different, there must be something different. I've seen your mission description. Purple-blooded realga grass likes to grow in dark and damp places, and snake-attracting grass grows beside it. During the spawning season, groups of snakes are often attracted to the snake-attracting grass to mate. But the purple jade grass is different. Chapter 2403. He carefully examined the veins on the leaves of the herb and indeed, he saw the snake scale marks that Luo Qingtong had mentioned. The mark was very faint, almost non-existent. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong's words, Hu Zhan would have gathered his strength in his eyes and tried his best to look at it. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to see the existence of this mark. Because this mark was crushed on it over the years, it wasn't the purple-blooded realga grass's mark. Naturally, it wasn't particularly clear. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong, perhaps no one would know the mystery of this leaf. Haha! Snake scale mark. There really is. There really are snake scale marks. When Hu Zhan saw this, he was indescribably ecstatic. What Luo Qingtong said was actually true. This kid is amazing. He could actually find such an inconspicuous place. Haha! Hu Zhan laughed heartily. On the other side, Liao Laosan and the others were dumbfounded. What? He looked at the purple-blooded realga grass in Hu Zhan's hand in disbelief. He didn't expect that Luo Qingtong could identify it so easily. And the reasons listed, he couldn't refute. After all, the location, living environment, and shape of the purple-blooded realgar grass were all described in the mission of his patron. What Luo Qingtong said was completely consistent with the purple-blooded realgar grass's habits. He couldn't say that the mission description issued by his patron was wrong, could he? That was really forcing people to be played like a monkey. It would arouse public anger. Liao Laosan thought so and instantly withered. He didn't expect that he would meet such a weirdo like Luo Qingtong. She was just a little beggar, but she actually had such a magical ability to distinguish the differences between medicinal herbs. Before, Liao Laosan took Luo Qingtong's words as a joke. But now it seemed that he was the joke. And it was the biggest kind. Thinking of his wanton ridicule of Luo Qingtong in front of everyone just now, Liao Laosan's face turned green, red, and white. Colorful like a color palette. Don't mention how wonderful it was. What made him want to cry even more was the way the Red Flame mercenary group members looked at him. Wicked old dog. Hu Zhan grinned and picked him up. Shout again. Weren't you screaming happily just now? You said we wronged you. He said that the medicinal ingredient was the purple jade grass. King dare to say it again in front of me? Hu Zhan clenched his fists so hard that creaking sounds could be heard. The group of people from the Red Flame mercenary group behind him also surrounded Liao Laosan and the others. Liao Laosan's legs trembled. When he saw the group of people surrounding him, his eyes rolled back and he almost fainted. How would he dare to say it again? Luo Qingtong had clearly explained the characteristics of the purple-blooded realgar grass. If he continued to deny it, he would be courting death. Even if the Red Flame mercenary group annihilated them, no one would dare to say anything. When Liao Laosan thought of this, he was even more terrified. He quickly knelt down and kowtowed to Hu Zhan. Especially towards Luo Qingtong, he slapped himself again and again. He scolded himself that he wasn't human, that he was as stupid as a pig or a dog, and that he had eyes but couldn't recognize Mount Tai. While he was crying and beating himself, the people in the hall on the other side also came back to their senses. This little beggar actually had such an ability? Chapter 2404. What did this ability represent? It represented that Luo Qingtong didn't need to be a pharmacist to be able to easily distinguish the difference between a group of medicinal herbs. Why did the group of mercenaries not dare to speak up when they clearly knew that the Black Iron mercenary group was exploiting them? Although the Black Iron mercenary group was the banker of Mercenary City this year, the most important thing was that they couldn't win against the Black Iron mercenary group. They clearly knew that there wasn't any problem with the medicinal herbs they picked. After all, they had risked their lives to pick them. How could they not know whether it was high-quality medicinal herbs or low-quality medicinal herbs? But they knew clearly that it didn't mean that the Mercenary Association would admit to it. The Black Iron mercenary group didn't admit to it, and the group of mercenaries didn't understand pharmacology. Naturally, they could only let them distort the truth. But Luo Qingtong's ability was different. The young girl obviously wasn't a pharmacist, and didn't have any refining methods to distinguish medicinal herbs. But she relied on the growth habits and minute details of the medicinal herbs to identify the medicinal herbs. Not only that, the Black Iron mercenary group was also speechless and couldn't refute. How could the group of mercenaries not go crazy and not have burning gazes? One had to know that Luo Qingtong's ability and method of identification were things that they could learn and apply. As long as Luo Qingtong could tell them the identification methods and minute differences of those medicinal herbs, they wouldn't have to worry about being cheated by the Black Iron mercenary group in the future. And they wouldn't have to worry about finding the wrong medicinal herbs when they went up the mountain to pick medicinal herbs and risked their lives. This little beggar was really something. The group of mercenaries thought so and looked at Luo Qingtong with even more burning gazes. And Luo Qingtong, seeing their gazes, immediately pretended to be scared and shrunk her body, moving closer to the Red Flame mercenary group. Not far behind her was Gu Yifeng. The latter was holding the purple-blooded realgar grass and carefully examining it. When he saw the faintly discernible snake scale traces on it, unless he used all his strength to look at it, it was absolutely impossible to see clearly. His eyes deepened. At this moment, Luo Qingtong leaned towards him. When his hand touched Luo Qingtong's body, he came back to his senses. Then, he glared at the mercenaries who were rushing towards Luo Qingtong and asked coldly, "What are you trying to do?" She is a member of our Red Flame mercenary group. He raised his hand and shielded Luo Qingtong behind him. The young man's ability was extraordinary, and at this time, it was the most coveted. Gu Yifeng didn't know why the other party had fallen to the level of a child beggar despite having such abilities. However, when he thought of the other party's thin and petite figure, he guessed that her family background wasn't very good in the past. What's more, her abilities were so outstanding. If she didn't have the ability to protect herself, she would be in big trouble. Thinking of this, he somewhat understood the reason. It wasn't that the young man didn't want to reveal his abilities, but he didn't dare and couldn't reveal his abilities. Thinking about it this way, the other party must have mustered up a lot of courage to stand up for them. Thinking of this, Gu Yifeng suddenly felt a trace of pity in his heart. He pulled the person behind him. Chapter 2405. The group of mercenaries were staring at Luo Qingtong like hungry wolves, ready to snatch her away. However, Gu Yifeng's action made them all sober up. They remembered that Luo Qingtong pointed out the difference of the purple blood realgar grass because of the Red Flame mercenary group. The group of mercenaries couldn't figure out whether they had any relationship before. But they were unwilling to give up on Luo Qingtong just like that. After all, for so many years, they had only seen Luo Qingtong, who was not an alchemist but could perfectly identify medicinal herbs. And her method was very suitable for the group of mercenaries. How could they give up? At that moment, a person who looked like a high-ranking mercenary group stood up and said, "Gu Yifeng, it's not right for your Red Flame mercenary group to do this, right?" He looked at Luo Qingtong as he spoke, his gaze burning. "This little beggar's ability is so powerful. Your Red Flame mercenary group actually wants to monopolize her? We won't agree." "That's right." With him taking the lead, the group of mercenaries immediately gathered their courage and shouted at Gu Yifeng and the others, "Leader Gu, we respect your strength, but this little beggar isn't your Red Flame mercenary group's member. Isn't it too much for you to do this?" "That's right. How can you do things like this? Seeing that this little beggar's ability is so powerful, you want to monopolize her. To think that I used to think that the Red Flame mercenary group's strength was not bad, and that they were a rare clean stream in Mercenary City. I didn't expect them to be the same as the Black Iron mercenary group. They are all shameless people." In order to get Luo Qingtong, the group of mercenaries did not hesitate to slander Gu Yifeng and the others. They said that they were as shameless as the Black Iron mercenary group and wanted to monopolize Luo Qingtong. However, who here couldn't see it? Luo Qingtong helped the Red Flame mercenary group, and Gu Yifeng wanted to protect this little beggar. But it was obvious that the group of mercenaries didn't want to. And it was obvious that they wanted to join forces to deal with the Red Flame mercenary group. If they really joined forces, under the instigation of someone with ulterior motives, even if the Red Flame mercenary group's strength was tyrannical, they wouldn't be able to gain any advantage under the attacks of a group of mercenaries. As the members of the Red Flame mercenary group thought about it, their expressions changed slightly as they all looked at Gu Yifeng. As for Hu Zhan and the others, they were originally dealing with Liao Laosan and the others, beating them until they wailed again and again. Hearing Gu Yifeng and the others' movements, their expressions instantly changed, and they were too lazy to bother with Laosan and the others. Instead, it was the latter and the others who were kneeling on the ground, crying out in pain. Chapter 2406. If it wasn't for Luo Qingtong's ingenuity to neutralize his strength, she would have been slapped to the ground. Was this person trying to protect her, or was he trying to kill her? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. But she also knew that Hu Zhan didn't do it on purpose. He was just a little reckless and didn't know the severity of the situation. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she thought of Chu Lingfeng, that blockhead. In a certain aspect, the other party was somewhat similar to Hu Zhan. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's gaze softened a little. At the same time, she looked at Gu Yifeng in front of her quietly, wanting to know what choice he would make. And this would also determine Luo Qingtong's attitude towards them later. That's right, Luo Qingtong knew from the start that she would inevitably face such a scene when she revealed her ability. She wanted to see what choice Gu Yifeng and the rest would make. If they chose to draw a clear line with her, she naturally had a way to escape. But at this point, she wouldn't have any interaction with the Red Flame mercenary group anymore. She took action just now as returning the favor to Gu Yifeng for speaking up for her. But if they insisted on protecting her, then she could believe in them and cooperate with them. Luo Qingtong had always done things like this. She wouldn't be particularly kind, but she wouldn't pour her heart out for a moment of kindness from others. If they wanted her to help willingly and give the other party benefits, other than exchanging her life for it, there was only the word, true feelings left. And in this world, how few people could truly treat others with true feelings. On the contrary, some ungrateful wolves were the most popular. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's lips instantly revealed a faintly discernible mocking smile. She would rather throw her things out to feed the dogs than give them to some ungrateful wolves. When Hu Zhan's voice sounded, Gu Yifeng's gaze swept coldly across the crowd of excited people who were waiting to rush forward. He waved the long spear in his hand and said coldly, "Protect her, go." Once Gu Yifeng said that, it was obvious that he was going to go against this group of mercenaries for Luo Qingtong's sake. The group of Red Flame mercenary group didn't say anything and only took out their weapons one by one. And Hu Zhan even laughed and clenched his fists. Clatter! A crisp and clear sound came from his knuckles. He laughed and said, "Haha, boss is still the most straightforward. Let's go." As he spoke, he was about to lead the crowd and rush out behind Gu Yifeng. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the people in the hall changed. Gu Yifeng, are you really going to go against so many people in Mercenary City for a little beggar? Don't forget that you still want to stay in Mercenary City. The member of the high-ranking mercenary group who spoke first said. His face was full of anger. He didn't expect Gu Yifeng and the rest to be willing to go against so many of them just to protect a little beggar. Wasn't it just a little beggar who helped them? It was only right to hand her over and share her with them. Gu Yifeng and the rest were actually so stubborn. No wonder they couldn't develop in Mercenary City despite their tyrannical strength. Chapter 2407. This kind of person was simply an anomaly among mercenaries who only cared about profits. They didn't know how the other party cultivated to such an extent. With such an inflexible character, he actually didn't die early. That senior mercenary's face was filled with anger. But Gu Yifeng didn't even look at them. He only swept the long spear in his hand coldly and was about to break through with Hu Zhan and the rest. Just at this moment, Luo Qingtong's timid voice came from behind him. Everyone! No, everyone, don't make a ruckus. Luo Qingtong's body revealed half of her body from behind Gu Yifeng's back. Her gaze was timid and fearful as she looked at the group of people surrounding her and the Red Flame mercenary group. She said softly, "Even if I'm a member of the Red Flame mercenary group, I can also help you appraise the medicinal herbs. But I want to collect the appraisal fee." As she said, she shrank back behind Gu Yifeng's back. "So, don't make a ruckus. Or else I won't show it to anyone." The moment Luo Qingtong's words came out, all the mercenaries present were stunned. That's right, why didn't they think that even if Luo Qingtong was a member of the Red Flame mercenary group, she could still help them appraise medicinal herbs? After all, the people of the Red Flame mercenary group weren't like the other large mercenary groups who monopolized all the benefits. The people of the Red Flame mercenary group could be considered as the only upright mercenary group in Mercenary City who didn't casually bully and coerce the low-level mercenaries like them. And the other mercenary groups weren't as easy to talk to as them. Thinking about it, their previous attempt to stop Luo Qingtong and the Red Flame mercenary group was simply stupid to the extreme. Without the protection of the Red Flame mercenary group, wouldn't Luo Qingtong's ability be monopolized by those large mercenary groups? At that time, none of them would be able to get the benefits brought about by the youngster's ability. It was better to be like now. Luo Qingtong had joined the Red Flame mercenary group, and under the other party's protection, those large mercenary groups wouldn't dare to act rashly. And for people like them, if they wanted to get the other party to appraise, they just had to pay some money directly. How good it was for everyone to take what they needed. Everyone thought in their hearts and immediately felt ashamed. They must have been kicked in the head by a donkey to want to attack the Red Flame mercenary group. As for the person who spoke just now, he was the one who tried to sow discord, causing them to misunderstand the Red Flame mercenary group and forgetting the Red Flame mercenary group's code of conduct. The crowd glared angrily at the member of the advanced mercenary group who spoke first. The expression of the high-ranking mercenary group's member changed as he looked at them. He was indeed planning to sow discord. He wanted to use the people present to force the Red Flame mercenary group to the opposite side of the crowd. Only then would the group of high-ranking mercenaries make a move to snatch the person from Gu Yifeng's hands. His expression changed. Facing the angry gazes of the crowd, he felt very guilty. "I'm leaving first." As he spoke, he turned around and prepared to leave. However, the group of people from the Red Flame mercenary group were tricked by him and were almost forced out of Mercenary City. How could they be willing to let it go? Hu Zhan, in particular, threw a punch straight at Yi Futian's face. "I'll leave your grandpa. Didn't you want to fight with our Red Flame mercenary group? You were shouting so happily just now and now you're withering? Master Hu is telling you, it's over. Damn it, beat him up." Chapter 2408. As soon as Hu Zhan spoke, a group of people from the Red Flame mercenary group rushed towards the person from the senior mercenary group. Behind them, there was a group of angry low-level mercenaries who had been fooled by them. The crowd rushed towards the person from the senior mercenary group and beat him up in an instant. The latter was drowned in the crowd. He didn't even have time to make a sound before he was brutally beaten up. He was beaten black and blue, and he fainted. When the crowd dispersed, he was lying on the ground foaming at the mouth. Liao Laosan and the others looked and their legs suddenly went soft. When they saw Luo Qingtong and the people from the Red Flame mercenary group being surrounded, they were very happy. They thought that Luo Qingtong and the people from the Red Flame mercenary group were in big trouble. As a result, the situation took a sharp turn. They didn't have time to cheer in their hearts when they saw Luo Qingtong solve the trouble of the Red Flame mercenary group with a few words. Not only that, she also turned the trouble into an opportunity. Damn it! This was simply a fantasy. They looked at Luo Qingtong, who was surrounded by a group of mercenaries who were asking about her well-being and trying to curry favor with her. Their minds couldn't move at all. They didn't expect that things would turn out like this in the end. This little beggar, the little beggar that they had casually scolded and looked down upon, actually had such ability. In the blink of an eye, he had become the guest of honor of all the mercenaries in Mercenary City, the target that they all wanted to curry favor with. And they, the people from the Black Iron mercenary group who boasted of being superior, became the people that everyone wanted to beat up. They couldn't bear this blow. Who could tell them what was going on? What made Liao Laosan and the others unable to bear was that Luo Qingtong stayed in the Mercenary City and promised to identify medicinal herbs for these mercenaries. What about the people from the Black Iron mercenary group? In the future, how could they embezzle the medicinal herbs of these mercenaries? How could they cancel their missions and buy their medicinal herbs at a low price? The people from the Black Iron mercenary group thought and instantly rolled their eyes. They didn't faint after being beaten by Hu Zhan and the others, but now they had an impulse to die at any moment. Especially Liao Laosan, his intestines were about to turn green with regret. If he had known earlier that Luo Qingtong had such an ability, he would never have embezzled the Red Flame mercenary group's business. No matter how much money he was offered, he wouldn't do it. What kind of bad luck did he have in his life? To think that he would meet such a god of plague, destroying his business and seizing his lifeline. Chapter 2409. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong and the Red Flame mercenary group had to use a Herculean effort to escape from the group of enthusiastic low-level mercenaries that surrounded them. Especially Tiger Zhan, a dignified 8-foot man, almost had his shoe squeezed off. Because those people who came to please Luo Qingtong were not here to fight, he naturally couldn't do anything and almost exploded himself. But soon he laughed again, raised his hand and patted Luo Qingtong's shoulder. "Good. You're good, kid." Haha. Did you see that? Liao Laosan and his group of bitter melon faces? And those people of the Iron Blood mercenary group with colorful soy sauce faces? Damn, that one is so black, and it even has color effects. It's so ugly that I'm going to laugh to death. This little guy is with us, they can't get a share. Their hearts must be so sullen that they're stupid. Ha ha ha, good. Tiger Zhan thought like this, and suddenly he was not so sullen that he almost had his shoe squeezed off. An enchanting female mercenary beside them rolled her eyes at him, then raised her hand and hugged Luo Qingtong, pressing her to her chest. Okay, Tiger Jean, you don't know how strong your hand is. Do you want to slap this little guy to death? Then she smiled and squatted slightly to Luo Qingtong. Little guy, tell sister your name. From now on, sister will protect you. If this damn tiger dares to bully you in the future, you can come to me, she said, her two breasts that were at least 36D swayed in front of her, making Luo Qingtong stare. She looked up at the two breasts of the enchanting female mercenary, and then looked at her own breasts that were flattened but used to be. The corner of her mouth twitched for a while. Fortunately, she was not a girl, otherwise, such a comparison would be really painful. Born in 2 lives, the only pain in Luo Qingtong's heart was her cup size that didn't grow. Really heartbroken. Just as Luo Qingtong was silently praying, Hu Zhan's dissatisfied voice sounded. Ouyang Yingyu, what are you talking about? When did I bully her? Tiger War rolled his eyes. However, he also noticed that Luo Qingtong had intentionally avoided his slap when Ouyang Yingyu pulled her. Did he really use too much strength? Hu Zhan felt a little embarrassed. After scratching his head silently, he didn't forcefully pull Luo Qingtong over. He just said this with dissatisfaction. Humph, you know very well whether or not it is. Ouyang Yingyu snorted, and her pair of enchanting eyes instantly swept towards Hu Zhan, both beautiful and imposing. It could be seen that although her appearance was enchanting and beautiful, and her words were also very flowery, she was not a person to be trifled with. It was just that this name was a little too virtuous. Luo Qingtong was a little dumbfounded as she watched them go back and forth. She had an inexplicable feeling that the people of the Red Flame mercenary group were all different from the people she had met before. She couldn't tell what was different. But it felt like the relationship she had with Su Yu and Su Xiaoxiao. Sincere and sincere. Although they were superior and subordinate, they were like partners. Sure enough, when Hu Zhan and Ouyang Yingyu insulted each other, the other members of the Red Flame mercenary group all laughed, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. Chapter 24:10. Well, little guy, tell us your name. Don't worry. Since our leader has taken you in, no matter what, you are a member of our Red Flame mercenary group. As if seeing Luo Qingtong's gaze, Ouyang Yingyu chuckled and raised her hand to scratch Luo Qingtong's nose. Her appearance was gorgeous and enchanting. She was really a seductive stunner. Unfortunately, this was a thorny flower. However, she didn't know that the person in front of her, who she called little guy, was more evil, more enchanting, and more arrogant than her. But now the flower had restrained her claws and teeth and was trying to play the role of a little white rabbit. Luo Qingtong smiled innocently and called out to Ouyang Yingyu shyly. Sister Yingyu, my name is Luo Xiaoqi. Luo Qingtong had dismantled her previous name and used it for herself. Anyway, except for a few people, no one would know that she was called Luo Qi. And the name Xie Qi definitely couldn't be used. At least, it couldn't be used now. Luo Qingtong wouldn't give those men in black a chance to find her. Well, Luo Xiaoqi, this name is really cute. Ouyang Yingyu said and directly pressed Luo Qingtong into her arms. She didn't know why, but she liked the petite and thin little guy in front of her very much. Of course, it was also possible that she had just helped the people of the Red Flame mercenary group. The people of the Red Flame mercenary group were particular about revenge and gratitude. Although Luo Qingtong obviously helped them because Gu Yifeng said a few good words for her before. But how could those words be compared with Luo Qingtong helping them solve the difficulties from the Black Iron mercenary group? Because of the completion of the mission just now, the people of the Red Flame mercenary group didn't know how much rewards and benefits they could get. Not to mention that Luo Qingtong's ability was extraordinary. Her observation was extremely powerful and terrifying. She could easily distinguish the difference between those medicinal materials. In the future, the people of the Red Flame mercenary group would be blessed. In such a case, how could Ouyang Yingyu not be more and more fond of Luo Qingtong? Most of the others had the same thought. As for Luo Qingtong's cultivation, they didn't care about it at all. To the members of the Red Flame mercenary group, companions were companions. It had nothing to do with the others' cultivation. Even if Luo Qingtong's cultivation was as weak as the sky, as long as Gu Yifeng acknowledged her, everyone acknowledged her, it would not be a problem. In fact, because Luo Qingtong's cultivation was not obvious, They would even love and protect Luo Qingtong more. Alright, little cutie little 7, from now on, you're a member of our Red Flame mercenary group. Come, let me introduce you. This is our group leader, Gu Yifeng. He's at the 6th level of the human martial realm. Ouyang Yingyu giggled and said, "Don't think that our captain is not strong. His dragon-slaying spear has killed countless 6th-level human martial realm experts. Although he's at the 6th level of the human martial realm, he's not inferior to a 7th or 8th level expert. Even 9th level experts who don't have a solid foundation may not be able to do anything to him." Ouyang Yingyu said and turned to Hu Zhan, who was rubbing his hands and waiting for her to introduce him. She rolled her eyes and said, "As for this, he's our Red Flame mercenary group's vice leader. Hu Zhan." Chapter 24:11. So, if you have any problems in the future, if someone bullies you, you can go to him. Of course, if you are bullied by him, you can come to me. See if I don't torture him to death. Ouyang Yingyu raised her eyebrows and chuckled. The expression between her eyebrows was very domineering and beautiful. When Hu Zhan heard her words, he suddenly looked resentful and said, "You want to teach me a lesson? Aren't you just relying on the fact that I don't hit women?" Hu Zhan was at the 5th level of the human martial realm, while Ouyang Yingyu was at the 4th level. However, because he didn't hit women, he was completely dominated by Yingyu. "Is that so?" Ouyang Yingyu raised her eyebrows and looked at Hu Zhan. "Then come to my room tonight and let's compare notes." She said it in an unusually flirtatious manner, and in the end, she even raised her hand to stroke her hair. When Hu Zhan heard her words, he instantly looked as if he had seen a ghost. His face twitched slightly and his face twisted. Okay, my great aunt, I'll let you win, okay? Don't drag me into a fight at night. I really can't take it. I still have a mission tomorrow." "Leader, don't you think so?" As he spoke, he quickly pulled Gu Yifeng over. When the surrounding members of the Red Flame mercenary group heard his words and saw his cowardly performance, they instantly roared with laughter. "Hey, big brother Zhan, didn't you say that Sister Yu is relying on the fact that she is a woman and you don't hit her, so she can suppress you? Go, we support you to fight with her. Yes, otherwise the position of the deputy leader in the group is a bit unworthy of the name." "That's right." The group of people laughed with good intentions. Hu Zhan, on the other hand, glared at them angrily. This group of bastards, no sense of brotherhood. If they wanted to see the world in chaos, why didn't they fight with that woman, Ouyang Yingyu? Who didn't know that this woman, Ouyang Yingyu, became extremely terrifying at night. When she went crazy, even the leader might not be able to deal with her. If he fought with her, wouldn't he be looking for a beating? "Get out of here. Otherwise, I'll let you guys guard her tonight. It's a good opportunity to train you guys." When the group of people heard this, they immediately scattered like birds. Humph, a bunch of men with evil intentions but no guts. Ouyang Yingyu snorted and flipped her hair. Then she looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "Okay, little cutie, do you remember what I just said?" Yes. Luo Qingtong was pressed against her chest. She didn't come back to her senses for a long time. She was embarrassed. At this time, Gu Yifeng raised his hand and pulled her over. He said to Ouyang Yingyu, "All right, he's still young. Don't tease him. Also, send someone to pay attention to the Black Iron mercenary group. After suffering such a huge loss, they might not be willing to let it go." His voice was faint and his expression was calm. However, when his hand came into contact with Luo Qingtong's skin, he suddenly paused. Not because of anything else, but because the skin of the young man in front of him was too smooth and soft. It looked as if it had never been ravaged by wind and rain. Gu Yifeng looked at Luo Qingtong's obviously very petite face and frowned slightly. This little guy. Maybe he used to be a spoiled young master. This could also explain why she was so unguarded before. Chapter 24:12. This little fellow was a bit scheming. She knew how to hide her abilities, but she wasn't experienced enough. Instead, she was pure and innocent to the point of being cute. If she hadn't met them, If she had met any other mercenary group blinded by greed, she would have already become someone else's slave and money tree. Thinking of this, Gu Yifeng looked at Luo Qingtong with a gentler gaze. He softened his voice and said to Luo Qingtong, "Luo, little seven, you can stay in the Red Flame mercenary group with peace of mind. As long as the people of the Red Flame mercenary group are here, we will not let you encounter any harm in Mercenary City. You can rest assured." Gu Yifeng's voice was a bit stiff. Obviously, he wasn't used to the current situation where he spoke slowly. Usually, the mercenary groups were all big and rough men. Even Ouyang Yu was more intrepid than the average mercenary. Gu Yifeng had never met such a petite and weak youth like Luo Qingtong. However, he was afraid that the other party would be frightened, so he suppressed his temper and spoke to her in a rare gentle manner. Luo Qingtong glanced at Gu Yifeng. This person's complexion was calm and his eyes were upright. She hadn't misjudged him before. Since that was the case, she would borrow the people of the Red Flame mercenary group to do things in Mercenary City. Then, in the future, she would also give them great wealth. For Luo Qingtong, she had countless ways to earn enough money to investigate the location of the true Spill continent. But none of those methods were unnoticeable. In this strange place, Luo Qingtong was very likely to have those black-clothed people tracking her. Luo Qingtong didn't want to attract unnecessary trouble. She might even accidentally lead those enemies to the true Spill continent. Therefore, she could only choose a more cautious method. And the people of the Red Flame mercenary group were the people she chose. With the other party's protection, Luo Qingtong could use her blood-red eyes to make money in Mercenary City. And because this method was invisible and traceless, it didn't reveal her identity as an alchemist or even an alchemist. It could be said that this was the most stable and fastest way for Luo Qingtong to earn money. As for the people of the Red Flame mercenary group, as long as they didn't have any ill intentions towards her until she was ready to leave, she would give them a corresponding reward as compensation. Luo Qingtong's mind was filled with countless immortal secret manuals and cultivation methods. In the past, when she was on Earth, or even when she was in the true Spill continent, she was unable to cultivate because she lacked immortal spirit energy. However, the people of the Red Flame mercenary group were already at the Venerable Realm and above, while Gu Yifeng and the others were at the Human Martial Realm and above. Under such circumstances, the immortal secret scriptures and cultivation methods that she remembered could be used by them. Of course, she would keep the best Luo Qingtong for herself. Only the rest would be given to others. As for the hidden dangers and weaknesses that Gu Yifeng and the others had developed due to their years of self-exploration and cultivation, Luo Qingtong would point them out one by one. This would be their reward for sheltering her. As someone who sincerely helped her, Luo Qingtong was never stingy with her rewards. Luo Qingtong's cleverness made Gu Yifeng very satisfied. He raised his hand and rubbed Luo Qingtong's head, then said to her, "Okay, you can go and rest first." Chapter 24:13. Gu Yifeng originally wanted to let other people make arrangements for Luo Qingtong. But when he thought about how Hu Zhan and the others were a group of uncouth people who didn't know the severity of the situation, and the only person he could rely on, Ouyang Yu, was a person who liked to tease people. Coupled with the hidden danger in her body, Gu Yifeng thought about it and realized that he was the only one who could take care of Luo Qingtong. His face twitched slightly, and he couldn't help but bite the bullet and take over the responsibility of taking care of Luo Qingtong. He brought Luo Qingtong to a place not far from his side courtyard. Firstly, it was convenient to take care of Luo Qingtong, and secondly, it was to protect Luo Qingtong's safety. The youngster's ability to identify medicinal herbs was not ordinary. The entire mercenary city was staring at them at this moment. Who didn't want Luo Qingtong, this fragrant steamed bun? This way, even if they weren't alchemists or alchemists, they could still easily identify any medicinal herbs. This ability was an excellent blessing for people like them who lived on the edge of a knife and didn't have enough time and resources to learn and practice alchemy and alchemy. Even some alchemists might be scrambling for Luo Qingtong's ability. After all, Luo Qingtong's ability was suitable for all ages and didn't require any prerequisites. Some alchemists' ability wasn't strong enough and couldn't identify high-level medicinal herbs. They might even need Luo Qingtong's help. Controlling Luo Qingtong was equivalent to holding an excellent lifeline and a way to make a fortune. How could those mercenary groups give up so easily? Therefore, Gu Yifeng had to be more careful. He couldn't let anything happen to this little guy in his hands. After all, if it wasn't for them, Luo Qingtong's ability wouldn't have been exposed. Gu Yifeng thought so and immediately went to make arrangements for Luo Qingtong after arranging things for her. After Luo Qingtong was arranged to stay in the side courtyard by Gu Yifeng, she immediately breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed. She gave herself a simple wash and deepened the birthmark on her face. She tried her best to let the birthmark cover her entire face, making it look hideous and ugly, but at the same time, her face couldn't be seen clearly. After that, she took another bath and quickly changed into a clean set of coarse clothes. Gu Yifeng had asked someone to prepare this for her. After all, the clothes that Luo Qingtong wore before were too shabby and tattered. After doing this, Luo Qingtong reclined on the chair with one hand on the table. She supported her chin with one hand and seriously considered what she should do next. She definitely had to investigate information about the true Spill continent. However, she had offended the people of the Black Iron Mercenary Group. Even if she made enough money, she still had to find a way to get the best of both worlds. Only then would she be able to investigate the true Spill continent. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong was really worried that the Black Iron Mercenary Group would give her false information. More importantly, she feared that these people would go to the true Spill continent to investigate her, or even attack the people of the true Spill continent. After all, to the people of a 6-star region, a 9-star region wasn't even worth mentioning. Not to mention that the true Spill continent was only a low-level continent in the 9-star region. Luo Qingtong feared that if the Black Iron Mercenary Group leaked out even a little bit of information, it would be enough to destroy the true Spill continent. Therefore, she had to be cautious. Luo Qingtong's brows furrowed slightly, but soon, her brows relaxed. She had already thought of what to do. Chapter 24:14. It's here. Under the cloak, a half-covered, faintly discernible face lifted slightly and looked at Mercenary City in front of him. The person's face was completely hidden under the black cloak. Even his figure was completely shrouded in it. He walked confidently towards Mercenary City in front of him. His footsteps were very elegant and leisurely. I didn't expect her to be hiding here. The man's voice was clear and melodious, like a mountain spring falling into a stream, making the sound of collision and sparkling water. However, the nonchalance and coldness hidden within those words caused one to feel a chill run down one's spine. Yu Mingqian chuckled as she looked at the city gate of Mercenary City in front of her. That pair of glass-like eyes were so clear that no emotions could be seen, let alone a trace of a smile. Interesting. After Luo Qingtong broke the inscription man-seeking array, he still relied on the powerful intelligence network of the Inscription Association to find the place where Luo Qingtong was. Yu Mingqian had people pay attention to the surroundings to make sure that there was no thin and weak youth like Luo Qingtong out of the city, which meant that the other party was still in Mercenary City. However, the other party had many tricks up her sleeve and had a cunning personality. She could have disguised herself and left. But since she appeared here, it meant that she had something to investigate. And before she found out what she wanted to do, she probably wouldn't leave. Therefore, Yu Mingqian could be sure that the other party was still in Mercenary City. Then let him meet with the other party for a while. At the same time, they could play a game of cat and mouse. Yu Mingqian's beautiful smile instantly curved as she thought of this. Her figure leaped and disappeared at the entrance of Mercenary City. At this moment, in Mercenary City, Luo Qingtong had already started her appraisal business in Mercenary City under the protection of the Red Flame Mercenary Group. She had the ability of the blood pupil, so she could easily see through the details and peculiarities of those medicinal herbs that no one else knew about. Every time she compared it with the descriptions of those mission issuers, she could immediately compare the medicinal herbs obtained by the group of mercenaries and whether they were mission items or not. And the evidence and reasons she listed made the investors and the people of the Black Iron Mercenary Group unable to refute her. The mercenaries gained a lot of benefits from her appraisal. Furthermore, after a shopkeeper who opened a pharmacy in Mercenary City asked Luo Qingtong to help identify a certain rare medicinal ingredient in his pharmacy, everyone in Mercenary City flocked to Luo Qingtong like a flock of ducks. This ugly young man was simply a god. Her eyes seemed to have magical powers. She could easily see through the strange details that they couldn't find even when they racked their brains. Even people from pawn shops, auctions, antique shops, and weapon shops came to Luo Qingtong for advice. After all, in these shops, even if there were people who could help them, there were also cases where they couldn't be sure. But Luo Qingtong was different. Every time the young man started from the smallest detail, every time he appraised a rare tool, he never failed. Moreover, Luo Qingtong didn't hide anything. Every time she appraised an item, she would explain it on the spot in the mercenary association. When the crowd of onlookers heard this, they all benefited. In this way, every time Luo Qingtong helped someone to appraise an item in the mercenary association, the entire mercenary association would be crowded with people coming and going. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.